Hello, and welcome to this behind-the-scenes look at Stab Several Skeletons. This is a game I made for the TO Jam 2022, and it was heavily inspired by one of my favorite NES games, Zelda 2, and specifically the combat and how interesting and engaging I thought the Zelda 2 combat was. In Zelda 2, you have the ability to jump, to attack, but also to crouch and attack, and then to jump and attack. And the enemy AI in the game is very simple and yet leads to some really interesting combat encounters. So here's an example. This skeleton. I can just stand here. This skeleton and I are going to be locked in this stalemate because I can swipe at him, he can swipe at me, and we just both keep playing off each other. To actually hit the skeleton, I need to duck down to swipe underneath his shield. But if I try to swipe at do a low hit like this, I'm putting myself at risk of being hit in the head like that. So just with this really simple encounter, you have to pay attention to the other skeleton's animations and try to find the opportune time to strike. And then of course it's TO Jam, so I had to have a goat. This was interesting because it was the first time I've ever created a melee combat system. It's one of the more ambitious game jam games that I've made in a while, just because of the fact that when I was going into it, I didn't know if I was going to finish in time. I didn't know, oh wow, I'm going to have maybe one enemy. And then I was like, well, what if I make these cannon fodder enemies, little skulls? And then, oh, it's TO Jam, I gotta have a goat. So I just sort of kept adding more and more to this game. And you see the goat comes back, which then you lead to these tough encounters. But that's exactly what I want to have happen. I want the player to be overwhelmed by this sudden I have to fight more than one thing. Yikes. But the way that I was able to put all this together is despite the fact that this is game jam code, I still took the opportunity to set up my my hierarchy system properly in the game. So to illustrate that, I set up a hierarchy where I have a parent enemy, and as children of that, I have the skull and the goat. And then I also have a parent of the melee enemy, which is the skeleton. And that means that these guys are able to share a lot of code. But where that would break down is when a AI enemy reaches a ledge or something like this. Well, the skeleton, I need to ignore ledges like this and walk down to confidently go and fight the player. But these guys, I need to have them turn around at edges. So how do I make code that I can sort of substitute out one behavior for another? And I believe this is called the delegate programming pattern in other languages. But basically, in GameMaker, I can write these little chunks of code. So I have a script here called @wall_turn. And I can open that up, and it just says flip your movement direction and change your actual image to make it look like you're going in that direction. Okay, so then I've assigned to this variable. So now I've got a piece of code that is stored in a variable, and then in my platform AI script, when I reach a ledge, I execute on reach ledge, and that can be a script just called empty, or it can be a script that actually makes it turn at ledge. Empty does nothing, but otherwise I can put actual code in there. So the skeleton will overwrite this, and it will rather the melee enemy will overwrite this behavior. So I can say that when you hit a wall, just ignore it, or walk through the things that would make other stuff turn around. And that way the skeletons will actually pursue you between the screens, whereas every other enemy will stop or turn around. So this was just an interesting programming pattern that I hadn't used much in GameMaker before, and I made heavy use of this time around. And I know that this exists in other languages, and it was a cool way of thinking about AI in this highly modular way, because I can just store functionality in a variable, and then different things can this is the whole concept in code of don't repeat yourself, where I've repeated myself right here because this is just This is the bad part in game jam code, is like just looking in different directions. I could be writing this properly, but I didn't. So, but the thing that is important is that on reach ledge can execute one of two different things, and it was a neat way to accomplish having a like decent variety of enemy behavior with being able to reuse code and then in very specific places not reuse code. Again, so many pieces of this game are put together through other stuff that I've built before, like the squash and stretch is something I built from before. The camera shake when I am fighting stuff, that's built from before. Even the platforming system is taken from Worlds Within Worlds. It just tweaked it so the character can only jump about one block high for the sake of this game. Even the tile set wasn't originally built to be a platforming tile set. It is a top-down tile set, which is an asset that I created way back when. It's meant to look like this sort of top-down Zelda dungeon, but it is just like, I need something that looks kind of like a dungeon. This will work. And you can see I just sort of stuck it in place, and it mostly works. So, yeah, this project is a whole lot of taking pieces and reusing them. The health bar scripts as well. That was all stuff that had been used in another project, but just recontextualized in this one. So, and that's it for this behind-the-scenes look at Stab Several Skeletons. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy the game.